Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'd first like to thank our guests that are with us, Mayor Jenny Durkan, our Small Business Administrator, Isabella Guzman, and Chief Operating Officer, BJ Stewart from Urban Impact. I also want to thank the community members, members of the press, and my incredibly talented, hardworking, and dedicated staff from the Office of Economic Development for being here today. And finally, I want to give thanks to Urban Impact and the Rainier Health and Fitness for hosting us this morning. Today, we are pleased to announce the opening of the Small Business Stabilization Fund. Starting today, the Office of Economic Development will begin accepting applications for grants through November 9th. Thank you, Mayor Durkan, for your leadership and allocating additional investments to OED that we are able to help our small businesses stabilize and recover from the devastating impacts of COVID-19. Our small businesses and neighborhood business districts contribute so much to our city's vitality, culture, and vibrancy. Our small businesses provide jobs for our neighbors, delicious foods from every ethnic background, and spaces for fun and recreation, including art, music, and cultural experiences, and the goods and services that we all rely on. This morning, I had the opportunity to join our mayor and distinguished guests on a walking tour here in Rainier Beach neighborhood to connect with some of our small business owners to better understand the experiences that they've been having, the challenges they have faced and continue to face, and better understand their recovery needs moving forward. The Office of Economic Development is committed to building an inclusive economy here in Seattle, and in order for this to be a reality, we have to have a city where small businesses can thrive and grow. This is why the economic recovery investments like the Small Business Stabilization Funds are critical, as they provide resources based on expenses such as rents, wages for employees, and other operational expenses that help our neighborhood businesses stay open. Our office was able to connect with a past Stabilization Fund recipient who shared that they had opened their business in 2019, but they had not finished developing their website and marketing tools prior to the onset of COVID. The grant that they received from OED helped them develop their website, pay for necessary advertising and marketing tools, and keep their businesses afloat while they restructured their operations to a virtual environment to avoid shutting down when conducting their business in person was no longer an option. This is just one example of the type of impact these resources have on our community and our businesses throughout our city. In response to community feedback, we have restructured the Small Business Stabilization Fund to now offer grants in different award amounts. Applicants will now be able to apply for $5,000, $10,000, and $20,000 grants based upon their level of negative financial impact from the pandemic. While COVID has impacted everyone, we know that the severity of those impacts have not been the same across the board. Some of the most harsh impacts have been experienced by our Black, Indigenous, and other business owners of color, as well as women who have had significant barriers to accessing capital prior to the pandemic. These disparities were only exacerbated by the economic fallout caused by COVID-19. We hope by offering grants in different amounts, we can better respond to the unique circumstances of our small business owners. With this new round of funding, we look forward to the opportunity to provide some financial relief to small business owners doing their best to stay open, support their employees, and serve our communities. Thank you, and I now welcome Mayor Jenny Durkan to provide additional remarks. Mayor Durkan.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, everyone, for being here. What a beautiful day. It's so great to be in Rainier Beach. And as Pamela said, we are here to celebrate the release of additional economic recovery money and supports for our small businesses through the Small Business Stabilization Funds and through the Office of Economic Development. We are also here to really highlight and celebrate the great collaboration that the city has now with the Small Business Administration. We are so happy the administrator is here. The Biden administration has been so focused on helping small businesses, particularly in communities of color. It's been the hardest 20 months our city's ever been through. And that burden fell disproportionately on our communities of color, both economically and health-wise. And as we come back as a city, we have to be very intentional about making sure that we have communities like this recover and support the small businesses that really been the heart and soul. We know through the pandemic when people were staying at home, it was their local businesses that kept them going. It's where you see people pick up your food, stop in. But those small businesses too were struggling just to keep their doors open and their employees things. So we are very excited that we are able to have this next launch. The very beginning of this crisis, the City of Seattle worked really hard to get financial assistance to those businesses that needed the most to provide some level of relief. And if you go in the Wayback Machine, you'll remember at that time we had no federal assistance. We as a city had to stand up programs, whether it was hot meals for seniors or small business stabilization. But we made it through that period of time by being together and supporting each other. We know that COVID exacerbated every inequity that exists in our city and across our nation. And it's particularly true when we look at small businesses. It's why we have been really intentional about reaching out to and supporting our BIPOC-owned businesses, because we know those communities, as I said, were disproportionately impacted by COVID. And even before COVID, there had been a generation of under-resourcing for those communities. We keep listening to our small business owners, even today on the walk with the administrator. How do we help? What do you need? Because that feedback gave us the information that we needed. And one thing we learned is people even need to know how to navigate the system. Really proud that the Small Business Administration is going to be setting up a navigator system. The city will interface with that so that there can be a one-stop shop for small businesses. Small businesses, especially restaurants, bars, nightclubs, and gyms, they were some of the hardest hit because they had to close down, and they closed down for a long period of time. But to help that, unanimously with the City Council, we provided $5 million in grants to support small businesses and workers in the hospitality industry. And we've had several rounds of this funding for our small business stabilization. We know it's not enough. We know those businesses need more. And what they need most is support from their community and the ability for customers to come back into the shops. So we will be doing this. I just also want to say, you've heard me say it before, the federal partnership has made all the difference for our city. Having the funding through the CARES Act and the other things has been critical. The infrastructure and Build Back Better plans are going to be critical. One of the things I have heard time and time again from small businesses is that women have been displaced out of the workforce, largely because of childcare issues. We need to fund childcare. We need to make sure that our kids can be in schools healthy. So it is also the reason that the City of Seattle has placed so much emphasis on vaccinations. We were the first city to reach 70%, and we now lead with over 85%-ish of vaccination rate. Our employees have stepped up to get vaccinated as well, and we know that by having a safe community, by having safe workplaces, customers will start to come back. We have to support the vibrancy of our small business in our neighborhoods. Before the pandemic, our small businesses provided about 5 times as many jobs as Amazon did for the City of Seattle. And they did it one business at a time. And many of them, the heartbeat for their local communities. So I'm really proud to be here with the administrator to say that this is, again, a partnership that will really make sure that we go forward. I want to thank Pamela Banks and all of the OED staff for all the work they've done in these last 20 months. It's been really challenging for them as well, but they did it every day because they believe so much in our small businesses. And so I want to thank that. I want to thank SBA Director Administrator Guzman for being here today. And with that, I will hand it over to her.
Thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming me, Mayor, to the City of Seattle. It's a beautiful city. I'm a Californian, and so of course, maybe I'll pause a minute.
We have a soundtrack.
We have a soundtrack. I'm gonna wait. You know, I'm a Californian, so it's nice to be back on the West Coast, and Seattle is such a vibrant city, and you know, really exemplifies the strength of our small businesses, our entrepreneurial communities, our immigrant communities, to pursue the American dream through small business ownership. And you know, this is what the American Rescue Plan, President Biden's American Rescue Plan, was all about, and we're so pleased to see the funds that were designated for state and local governments put to such great use through these small business grants. You know, the SBA has completely transformed during COVID, and we've put over $11 billion into the state of Washington through our incredible relief programs, Paycheck Protection Program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Programs, which is still available today, as well as the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and the Shuttered Venues Operator Grants. We've been working around the clock to make sure that the businesses like those that we saw today, salons and auto repair shops and our markets and our restaurants and cafes have had the opportunity to survive during COVID and be able to look forward to sustaining and thriving into the future. The Biden administration came in, was really focused on making sure that all that relief that was going out was distributed equitably. We know that women, people of color, and other underserved communities had a difficult time accessing relief. And part of President Biden's vision with the American Rescue Plan is to make sure that we do have local community navigators to supplement all of our resources on the ground at SBA and make sure that our businesses can connect more quickly to the relief that they need, to the assistance that they need to really thrive into the future. And so we're very pleased to be rolling out that program in the near future. I think what it comes down to is, the SBA is trying to make sure that we build teams around our small businesses so that they can survive during this time, and that we do it in an equitable manner that really meets businesses where they are, using the tools and the connections that they already have established in communities, and which is why collaboration with cities and leadership locally on the ground with economic development is what's going to make that difference to make sure that we're supporting more of our businesses. I think the administration was early on in recognizing that we really needed to fight the pandemic to help to support our small businesses. And we've gone from 2 million vaccinations when the president walked in the door to over 188 million vaccinated Americans. And that's really critical. So many of our small businesses lead on recognizing that the vaccinations work. And that they want to make sure that their main streets are vibrant again, and that they're able to attract workers and support communities by being open and having consumer behavior return to what it was. And so we're really committed to making sure that we can fight this pandemic and that we can support our economy and the continued growth that we've seen across the country in so many states. And so today on this tour, it was really heartening to hear businesses who received relief and who were able to stay open or keep employees on or be able to adapt to some of the changes in the marketplace, like adopting technology that has kept so many businesses afloat. And so that's what we're going to be focused on. And the Build Back Better agenda is all about making sure that we institutionalize so much of that support and that we can ensure that there's opportunities for businesses to connect to, as well as funding to support them on those ventures. And that's what the SBA is playing a big role in, making sure that there are strong supports for our small businesses as we build back better. I know that we're going to be taking some questions at this point, but just know that the federal government has been pleased to see that there's been effective use of funds to help spur our small businesses, and we hope that it'll continue to make sure that this city can continue to thrive with entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Administrator Guzman. Thank you for your words, and really thank you for the wonderful greetings that you bring from the federal government. Our staff and my staff, the OED staff, look forward to working with you as we get these dollars out to our community. Really appreciate your leadership. And you brought this beautiful weather. I now welcome our Councilwoman Morales to bring remarks. Councilman Morales.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here this morning. And I do want to thank Administrator Guzman for being here as well. To be here at Rainier Health and Fitness, which is a great example of how community knows how to respond to the needs in the community. This partnership between Rainier Health and Fitness and Urban Impact, and I see Steve here. I don't see Pastor Drake, but I know BJ will be speaking soon. Really demonstrates that the South End knows what we need. The South End has the creativity and the solutions to meet the needs of our neighbors. What we have lacked for a long time is access to resources and capital. And so I'm really excited to be here today to be able to kick off this $4 million in support for our small businesses. I know Administrator Guzman, as the daughter of a small business owner yourself, you can appreciate how important it is to let community lead with the solutions. Long before I was a council member and since my first day in office, I've been hearing from our small businesses that they need support. They need help to stay in the city. My constituents have been clamoring for greater access to resources and capital, so I'm really excited for this opportunity. And this has been a challenge, I should say, a challenge in South Seattle since long before the pandemic. So it was made worse. It was exacerbated by the fact that the Black and brown and immigrant-owned businesses down here in the South End were really left out of the first round of federal funding. And so I'm glad that there have been changes made, and I'm really excited that the City of Seattle has been able to adjust our contribution and our pass-through of these dollars to make sure that our Black and brown businesses get to benefit. I'm going to be brief. I just want to say that as long as this pandemic remains, as long as the uncertainty of this pandemic remains, we have to move quickly to mitigate disaster gentrification and the further displacement of our neighbors, particularly our small businesses. I hear regularly from small businesses here in South Seattle that they are fearful. They're worried that they're going to lose their businesses. They're worried that they're going to have to move because the buildings that they're in are at risk of being sold. And so we really have to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support these businesses and make sure that they can stay. I hear from small insurance companies, from ethnic grocers like the ones we have across the street, from neighborhood restaurants, that they need help. And so this is really important to make sure that we are keeping our neighbors here in Seattle. In the wake of this pandemic that is now 2 years running, small businesses need our help more than ever. If they're going to not just stay in the city, but be able to grow, be able to provide good jobs, be able to support their families and the other families that are down here. So we want to make sure that they don't get left behind. As the chair of the committee that oversees economic development, I do want to take a moment to thank the OED staff. I got to say, the last 18, 20 months have been really hard on the staff, and they have worked so hard, so diligently, 24 hours a day to support our small businesses and get all of this money out the door. So I really want to commend them for that work. And we know firsthand that a centralized strategic approach to economic development is what we're going to need to build an inclusive economy here in the city. As we start to transition from emergency response to a more sustainable economy, the role of OED is going to be critical in the near term, but also in the long term, so that we can support community resilience efforts. So I'm really happy that folks from OED are here, and I want to thank them again for their leadership. Those folks have worked tirelessly to support our small businesses, our micro businesses, to partner with neighborhood business districts, to support our creative business sectors, workers, special events organizers, and to ensure that there is actually an economy to come back to when this pandemic is over. So again, thank you to the Small Business Administration, thank you to OED, and all the staff who have worked so hard to help us stay afloat. Really appreciate the work that you're doing. I want to thank Rainier Health and Fitness for hosting this event today. And I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Urban Impact's Chief Operating Officer, BJ Stewart.
Thank you, Councilmember Morales, Mayor Durkan, Director Banks, and Administrator Guzman. Thank you for the opportunity to represent Urban Impact, who has served South Seattle and Seattle's under-resourced communities for 34 plus years with the mission of breaking the cycle of social, material, and spiritual poverty. Now, our mission recognizes that poverty is more than one's economic condition. So we have a variety of programs designed to meet the full needs of the communities that we serve, including Rainier Health and Fitness. So I want to acknowledge Alicia Haskins, Director, and her team for your service. I happen to lead Urban Impact's economic development efforts, which is designed to support under-resourced small businesses in Seattle's under-resourced communities. And we do so through a couple of programs. We have our Sharks at the Beach entrepreneurship program designed to serve microenterprise startups and emerging microenterprises. And we have a Thrive Business, what we call Thrive Business Accelerator, to provide a secondary level of support through those who participate in our programming, and then provides us an opportunity to wrap our arms around other local small business owners. And we do so through mentorship and coaching, application-based business training, and then connecting these folks to the capital resources that they need. And I was even sharing with Administrator Guzman that we are partnering with a local community development funding institution to launch a community-based investment and loan fund this year, which will provide opportunities for local grassroots investors to support the businesses in their community, and then to provide those capital dollars so much needed to the small businesses that we serve. So I am so excited to hear the continued support that is being announced today. It takes the continued partnership between federal, state, local government, our corporate partners, our community partners, our church partners, and community-based organizations like Urban Impact to support these local small businesses through COVID and beyond. Finally, let me recognize the true heroes, and that's the local small business owners, small businesses, and those entrepreneurs in our community, like Rainier Health and Fitness. Again, Alicia, congratulations to you and your team that despite significant reductions in revenue, you showed resilience and commitment to the community through your pivots and adjustments, through all the hoops that you had to jump through, all for the purpose of serving the communities serving the community. So just want to conclude that may we all continue to unite to support our local small businesses as they continue to serve the communities where they work and live. So I want to turn things back over to Pamela Banks. Pamela?
Thank you again, BJ. I want to again thank our guests, Mayor Durkan, Administrator Guzman, Councilmember Morales, and again, BJ Stewart for joining us today to announce the opening of this great stabilization fund. On Thursday, October 21st, OED will be hosting a virtual webinar for all interested applicants. Bilingual interpretation and translated materials will be available in Amharic, Chinese, Korean, Somali, Spanish, Thai, and Vietnamese. With that, I now want to open for questions, and I would like the press to focus on small businesses first, and then we'll take additional questions after that. Thank you very much. Who has questions?
I have a question for Administrator Guzman. I know that one of the critiques of how some of the federal money has been used in the past has been that some not small businesses have qualified as small businesses and gotten some of that money, perhaps, some part of a chain or something. And I'm wondering, and I know once we're getting to Seattle, once the money gets to Seattle, it's mostly going to truly small businesses, but what I'm wondering is what safeguards do you have, what sort of definitions of small business do you have in place? What changes have you made to make sure that this pot of money truly goes to, really, truly small and local businesses?
The Paycheck Protection Program was set up as a unique program that SBA administered and had different guidelines in terms of the size of businesses or the number of affiliated businesses that could apply. Normally, SBA provides assistance to small businesses as defined by the federal government, as defined by the agency, more or less businesses up to 500. So we do support a full gamut of businesses, from the majority solopreneurs that are out there building their businesses, businesses all the way up to the employers up to 500. And so we create programs and services for a wide variety of businesses. In terms of the federal relief, the Biden administration did focus on trying to serve those smallest entities, and we're very proud that PPP in 2021 went to a majority of those businesses 20 and under. In fact, 96% of our PPP loans in 2021 went to small entities, 20 and under employees, in addition to rural and low impact areas. On all of our other programs, we're continuing to make it easier, meet businesses where they are, simplify the process. As we know, the smallest entities don't have their lawyers or accountants prepared to help them with this process. And so we've adopted technology, for example, on Restaurant Revitalization Fund. We use the point of sale vendors, which we see in so many of these small businesses, and so that businesses could apply using their data through that point of sale vendor, as an example, putting it in multiple languages, working with great partners on the ground, those local stakeholder nonprofits that are working with small businesses to make sure that they get the funds. And so, in fact, the GAO issued a report on the SBA in terms of our reaching underserved communities previously not served during the administration, and our success in that effort. So we recognize that, while the PPP was a very unique program set to make sure that workforce could stay employed, the administration, the Small Business Administration, is focused on serving especially those who are in need, and that includes our underserved women and people of color.
Will the city be distributing the funds?
So we have some funds that the stabilization fund that we're announcing today, yes, and there's additional funding from SBA. Yeah.
So the American Rescue Plan, President Biden's American Rescue Plan, provided $350 billion to support local, fiscal programs for COVID relief. And this program, the small business grant program that the mayor can address right now, was funded through that. However, the SBA is not involved in the administration of that program. We continue to provide relief through the COVID Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and our other support programs at the SBA. But this is a great innovative way to localize that support and really reach these small businesses.
And again, I think it's that collaboration. I want to acknowledge Councilmember Morales for having us here, but also her staff, who also have been working around the clock to make sure that we could get everything we could to community. And as I was talking to the administrator before, right before the pandemic, we were trying to put the building blocks in place, and we're seeing, because we know a resilient community needs small business, but it also needs other things that you'll see up and down Rainier. If you go down here, you'll see the Ethiopian Community Center is starting on the housing for its elders. The Muslim Housing Association, we've given them grants and they're starting. We are really trying to be creative to make sure as we build things around Othello and other places, that we're also making that first floor available to the small businesses from the community. And I was able to have an executive order to give the community first shot at the housing in the community to avoid displacement. This, together with the great collaborations to provide the kind of funding and capital. And one of the most exciting things I think we heard today, if people didn't hear it again, is with SBA putting these navigators in place, one of the biggest hurdles to small businesses to know where to start. What is available to them? How do they apply? And so having these navigators working with OED, I think, is going to be a big help. Any other questions on the small business issues? I see everybody. All right, going once, going twice. Are there any other questions people might have?
We talked about this yesterday. I'm also going to be talking to the executive about this today, but following up on the vaccine verification for businesses, do you just want to talk a little bit about what you guys learned from UW, those numbers, and why it really is critical that businesses move forward and take part in this?
So the question is on the vaccine requirements for businesses that went into effect yesterday through King County Public Health. What did we learn from both Public Health and the University of Washington with regards to how important that was? I think we learned a lot. We also learned a lot from the businesses and their employees themselves. We know that through coming out of the pandemic, our small businesses were having a hard time hiring people. And listening to those employees, a lot of employees did not feel safe coming back into the workplace and waiting on people because of particularly with Delta. And so making sure that customers would be vaccinated as well gave a lot of assurance to those small businesses. And I've heard from many small businesses how important that was. And we know, look, COVID, no one expected this to go 20 months. And the Delta virus surged through every community. We were fortunate here in Seattle because, again, we had the highest vaccination rate of any city in America. And because of the hard steps we took at the beginning and businesses shutting down, the small businesses and other things, we had the lowest rate of infection, hospitalization, and death. And every step of the way, we've had to do some hard things, but every step of the way, we've seen people say are willing to do it and make those sacrifices.
Anything you want to say to businesses who are dragging their feet about this, worried that it will offend some of their customers?
You know, we have seen just the opposite. What we've seen is those businesses that people know it's safe to go into, those have been the first to come back. And if you look at the vaccination rates countywide, every week I meet with Public Health Director Jeff Duchin, you know, they're getting above 90%. People are voting with their arms. They're getting vaccinated. We're seeing it with our city workers. We're seeing it in communities. We've been really intentional about making sure that we get to our BIPOC communities so that they could be vaccinated. And about half the vaccinations that the city gave were to BIPOC members of the community. We need to in order to beat COVID, we have to be safe. And everybody wants to get back to normal.
Do you have any updated numbers on city employees?
Yes, we have some updated numbers. As everyone knows, just before midnight last night was the deadline. And I have to tell you, as mayor, I am so proud of the workers of the city of Seattle. And I can't overstate how hard it has been for them over 20 months to have to change whole lines of business to support community. 99% of the approximately 11,250 employees complied with the requirement. Almost 95%, 94.5% are fully vaccinated. 5% have an exemption, either a religious or medical exemption. That's about 520 people, again, in perspective, out of over 11,000 employees. And only 97 employees citywide didn't put in their paperwork. That's a remarkable return. So I think that we can be really proud of how people stepped up. In the coming days and weeks, we'll be walking through each one of those exemptions to address them. But what it says is, again, when we asked the workers of the city of Seattle to step up and to protect and serve this community, they did so.
Do you have a breakdown of the numbers for the police department?
So yeah, our most recent is, again, I think this is really good news, 92% of the police department is vaccinated. 7% have exemptions that we'll be working through. Only 1%, 7 individuals did not comply or turn in their paperwork. Only 7. I think that's a remarkable achievement, and it's very different from what people were forecasting. And again, we're going to be working through each of the medical and health exemptions, and any employee, civil service, they're entitled to a lateral or disciplinary hearing, and every employee will get a second chance to get a vaccination. Our goal was to get people vaccinated. We believe in our employees. We've invested in our employees. But each employee has to make the decision for themselves whether they want to continue in that employment and do so in a way that can keep people safe. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here.